On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, the Avs make another signing on day 2 of free agency, and it could be another one of those reclamation projects. Do we like it? Let's talk about it. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and make sure you're subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, we get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. All right, sir. If you're watching over on YouTube, we're going to get to the Avalanche schedule in a little bit, but we still have some free agency talk to talk about. We'll start with the Avs, and then we'll kind of just talk free agency as a whole, bird's eye view. But the Avs, I thought they were done after day one, but they were not done. They get one more signing in here, and it's defenseman Erik Brannstrom from the Ottawa Senators. Another very short-term, low AAV deal, which I don't have it in front of me, and that's terrible hosting on my part. Do you remember what? I can look it up while you were discussing.
I think it's 1 year, 800,000. If I'm not,
I think it was 900,000, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll look it up. But give me your overall thoughts first of all.
I think with the Avalanche, we were talking about what are they doing? Do they not see what the cap looks like? I feel like you ever bank with your banking app and then you buy a bunch of things. You're like, oh, that bill hasn't posted yet. I think I'm all right. I think the Avalanche are just kind of operating like this bill hasn't posted. I could still buy until tomorrow. Worry about it tomorrow.
Right.
What? Okay, that's cool. I get it. And we'll talk about Branstrom and what he's going to bring to the team in just a minute. But again, as we talked about yesterday, what are you doing with this cap? What is the breaking point, and what is the next move where they're like, you see all these pieces, almost like a Bob Ross painting where he paints everything. You're like, what is he doing? What is he doing? And then he flips it around. You're like, oh, it's a tree. Where is the tree in this? What is the move to make it all right and balanced?
And we want to know that answer, and the Avs don't have to tell us that answer right now. I just really hope they know that answer. It remains to be seen. They're not going this deep in the hole without some end game in this whole thing. So I mean, we talked about it a lot yesterday. So if you haven't checked out that episode, definitely go back and listen to that, because it was interesting yesterday. And now it's even more interesting because they added another guy. Even though it's only $900,000, they are further in the hole right now. Yes, there's some things that they can do, but they must have something in their back pocket that they have not shown their hand yet. We'll see. That's all we can say. We can sit here and guess and what they could do. We talked about it yesterday on things that they can do. They can make moves to fix this. The main one would be, obviously, do something to win the Chuskin, but we'll see. I just don't know, man. I do not envy Chris McFarland right now.
No, and you mentioned, and I'm glad you didn't go down this route, and I hate that I did, being the DC guy, but you said, what is the end game? Either Iron Man has to die, and that'd be Landeskog, or Thanos has to die, and that'd be Nichushkin.
Oh, you gave Thanos to Nichushkin. You gave him the villain role, right? Okay, all right.
Tell me where I'm wrong right now.
I'm not going down that road. All right. But as far as Branstrom goes, though, one of the things we did yesterday was looked at lines, what we thought they were going to be in defensive pairings, and we had Sam Malinsky kind of penciled in there as the sixth D man. This makes that not a guarantee. It still could be, but bringing in Branstrom kind of throws that up into the air and be like, okay, now we're going to have a little bit of a quarterback controversy in spring training type of thing. I know it's for the the third pairing on a defense, so it's not like this massive thing, but it's still a big deal. Like they expect all of their defensive pairings to produce. I talked to the Senators guys about Branstrom. It's one of those guys, he's very polarizing, it seems like, in Senators circles. There's guys that like him. There's people that are on the fence about him, and there's people that have thrown in the towel and have said, like, I've gone as long as I could and can, giving him opportunity after opportunity, and he doesn't just seem to be grabbing the reins. Not that he's like doing poorly. I mean, there's moments where he is, but I think it was the 15th pick overall, 15th or 16th. So you were expecting him to do more than what he is currently doing. And they were saying like there was an opportunity that this could happen, that they would throw in the towel on him. Obviously they have. He goes to the Avs and he's a restricted. Yeah, it was 1 year for $900,000. He's a restricted free agent next year with arbitration rights. So if they like what they see, they give him another year. He's 24 years old, so they could, bridge him if they wanted to. But what he brings to the team, I like parts of it, and other parts, it's a big question mark for me. I'll talk about that in a minute, but your thoughts?
Okay, when it comes to my thoughts on Branstrom, what he's going to bring to the team, contract looks great, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. What he brings, no more than 20 points. He likes the penalty box. He's 5'10", like 205. So who else is on this roster that's small that has a big contract?
Sammy G.
And you wanted to know what the end game could be.
Ooh.
It's because you're talking about Malinsky being possibly, because we slotted him right in the roster yesterday. Mm-hmm. Who's to say he's not?
But you're, I get where you're going with that. I do. But you are downgrading your defense if you get rid of Sam Girard and let Erik Brannstrom go in on the second pairing.
He's going to go third pairing. You're going to put probably Branstrom and Malinsky.
And you're going to bring Calvin DeHaan up to the second pairing?
He's got experience.
But I can't. And he is a injury waiting to happen. I like the DeHaan signing.
I do too.
But you have to kind of assume he's going to get hurt at some point just because he does.
The thing is with the defense, you have Taser, you have Makar, you have, let's just put Manson and Girard in this same little box in flux. Then you bring in this guy when you don't have cap room at $900,000 and under a Drouin type deal. Like, prove something to me, and we'll look at this RFA deal when the season's over. I feel like we've been looking at what are the Avs going to do with these two big contracts, and I feel like we're looking at the wrong position. I think we're looking at forwards at Landeskog and Nuke, and I feel like this in-game move is going to land on defense.
It could, but I think this team gets worse if you get rid of Sam Girard and kind of slot in Branstrom at his position, just slot him in. I think you get worse because the funny thing is, like, that's what I was talking to the Senators guys about. Like, they were like, he's very much like Sam Girard. He's undersized. He's good with the puck. He's good at moving the puck. He will make some kind of boneheaded mistakes in fumbling the puck and turning the puck over in his own zone. But he's kind of hovers on the verge of like electrifying. If he gets ahead of steam and he can plot out his course, he'll zip right through you. But the opposite is also true with him from everything that they talked about and everything that I have seen from other people talking about him too, is sometimes he can just be a bumbling idiot and turn the puck over and the puck's in the back of your own net. So it is, as I said in the opening, like, it is a little bit of a reclamation project for the Avalanche. And I don't think it's a terrible signing. I think it's a pretty good one. And do the Avs have good track records with guys like him? Yes and no. I think that's true for every team. You can point to. Well, I know you're laughing on the big one.
Yeah,
we
they're
always
trying
want
to
point to
offload
Val.
one of them.
Yeah, you always want to point to Val. But what they've done with Val in terms of on the ice, he
Yeah,
say this tongue in cheek, turned his career around. It seems like he's turning it in another direction right now. But you know, it was going well for a while. So I think the Avs are confident and like we can bring guys. Look at Jonathan Drouin right now. You can bring guys in, just teach them a different way. And maybe we can benefit from them a little bit. And that's how they're thinking about Branstrom right now. But I wouldn't like it if they got rid of an established defender to make way for him, where it is a question mark right now. It really, because if he wasn't a question mark, Senators wouldn't have let him go.
yeah.
They would have given him an offer, a qualifying offer, or even just signed him. So it's an up in the air thing that you don't really know how it's going to pan out. Obviously, we hope it does, but it's another one of these big like question mark things right now for the Avalanche, because it's, you know, you bring him in and the player itself, we just talked about him, could work out, could not. And then you have the whole cap situation, which is still front and center for the Avs. Like the soap opera continues. This is crazy.
It's fun, but then you start thinking about it, and it's really not. And
It's not. It's not.
It's kind of getting a little unnerving right now.
Yeah, it is. All right, let's get our first break in. When we come back, we'll talk about free agency as a whole. Day two, understandably, was much quieter, but what teams kind of stake their claim as winning this thing or even losing this thing up to this point? We'll talk about that coming up next. All right, let's hear from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, which is called what?
The Nathan McKinnon trilogy.
That's right. Absolutely. eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, so free agency well underway. Day one, understandably so, was the big day. Day two, still some good signings on day two. Kind of getting away from the Avalanche side of things and just league as a whole. Any teams that you turn to and be like, they had a good day, and then we'll get to maybe the bad ones if you want. But any teams that you're like, yep, they're good.
Yeah, I think there's a clear, easy answer when it comes to the winner of free agency. But there are also some interesting losers that I'd like to talk about in a minute. But would it not be the easy answer to say Nashville is the winner of the free agency?
100%. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, like, yes, in terms of the names that they brought in. Now, the second part of that answer is like, how are they going to perform? Right.
Sure.
Because obviously I was talking to Adam a lot about Adam Denker, host of Locked On Lightning, friend of the show, talking to him a lot about it and the whole Stamkos thing. And he didn't want to lose Stamkos just for what he stands for that team, but he's not sold that he can continue, you know, because he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're gonna be paying I think by the end of it, he's gonna be 38. Isn't he like 34 right now?
Yeah.
So he's gonna be in that round. You're gonna be paying him $8 million. Like,
gave him the identical deal to Hedman, which was.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Tampa is like, you can just see the laundry list of players that they have given extensions to all throughout these years, and they never gave one to Stamkos.
Yeah, I know.
What does that say? Like, what is going on there? Like,
and his comments when he is, it was to the fact of like, they didn't try to keep me.
Oh, he's not happy. Clearly, he's not happy, and I can understand it. You know, we always say like, oh, it's a business. It's a business. Like, okay, well, part of the business is, and it's funny because like I typically will side with the team and owners, which I know a lot of people side with the players because they get attached to the players. And you always hear like it's a business, it's a business, it's a business. Well, sometimes like that's got to get taken into account too, part of the business, what that guy means to this franchise. So yeah, you can say like it's a business, and I totally buy into that. But when you have a guy that's your captain and is synonymous with Tampa, I just feel like you've got to find a way to get that done. And if they didn't feel like if he had gotten like extensions in the past and they were at a point where just like, hey, we're just going to go separate ways, fine. But it just seems like they strung him along for so many years, and then they just throw in the towel on it. It's kind of amazing to me how that whole thing has worked out.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just it's an uneasy feeling over there in Tampa. And I don't know what's going on, but
yeah. But I think
Nashville
you're right.
wins. It makes the Central an
Yeah,
interesting battle this year.
definitely Nashville. Who else here? Edmonton has done some good moves here. Edmonton is looking pretty dangerous in their at least their three lines. They're looking like they're ready to go make another run at this thing. So I think they looked pretty good. Anybody else on your radar that thought was okay?
Honestly, the pieces that were, I mean, it would be silly to not say, and this has nothing to do with my biases, but New Jersey also looks hungry with pieces that they're adding, like getting Markstrom is definitely speaks, and getting Tatar back was also interesting. So I'm curious to see what that team, with all the promise they had last year, will look like with an actual good goalie back there. So that it's a team that everybody likes to sleep on, but maybe this is not the year to sleep on the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, I think they made some pretty decent moves. I don't think anything really negative. Does it push them over the top? I don't know, but does it get them back into contention? Yeah, I mean, you got a good goalie. That's all you really need. So, and I know that was through trade, but yeah, I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
How about on the opposite side? Who do you think did not so well?
The biggest, you could smell the whiff of just trash. Toronto Maple Leafs. What have they done? Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't even bother looking it up. Like they're still in disarray. They have a new bench boss, and this is the identity. What, you remember the swagger the Leafs had going into last season, and that they operated honestly all last season until the playoffs with. The Leafs looked really good.
Yeah.
That team has fallen apart. You don't know what's going to happen with Marner. And just the weird moves. It just does not feel like they improved. It feels like they got worse, and they don't feel any more confident than last year.
I don't feel like they got worse, but I don't feel like they got better. I think they just like got stagnant, kind of just stayed the same.
And I don't feel like it's over there.
Yeah.
Like how the Avs are still trying to like figure out their cap situation. It's the reverse situation on who they're getting rid of still in Toronto.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I don't think the Rangers hardly did anything.
Same with Seattle.
I was going to bring them up too, but like the Rangers just they traded with Pittsburgh, and then they made, I think, one signing so far. So and it's like one of those things where it's similar to like you have a lot of your top guys locked up, so you just need to kind of like plug these holes. It doesn't seem like they're really doing it. They're not rushing to get anything done right now, and sometimes that pays dividends in the end. You just wait it out, and then some of those guys that didn't get a deal that they want, they have to sign for a little bit less somewhere. So maybe that's what they're doing. But you mentioned Seattle. No idea what they're doing. They're going backwards. and things were looking so up for them after year two, and they're handing out contracts that this is what happens in free agency right now. Teams just feel like they have to kind of overbid to get this guy, and then they regret it. Whether they might regret it, if it's a 6 or 7 year contract, they might regret it. in year 3. So it might take a couple years to get there, but there's a lot of regret that's going to be happening with a lot of signings that happened on day 1 of free agency. And that's just where we are. That's how it is. Seattle is going to be there maybe after the first month. That Chandler Stevenson deal is horrible. Horrible.
And you want to talk about like horrible signings and deals? I want to flip it back on those Rangers for a second. Did that Igor Shesterkin report about what he wants his deal to look like?
Mm-hmm.
He wants it to be, I've never in my life heard it constructed this way before. It's just astounding. He wants his contract to be 14% of the cap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I get what he's going with that, but yeah, go ahead. Because go ahead.
He wants to be up in the $12 million range.
Yeah. I'd give it to him.
Okay.
If I had it, I'd give it to him.
Mr. Igor, that's a great, wonderful thing that you concocted there, but can you show me your list of awards, please?
Well, I mean,
like Hellebuck is not asking or demanding anything like this, and he's the superior goalie.
Yeah.
And
but he's a top tier goalie. I mean, I'm not going to take away from what Shesterkin is because he's elite. He's elite.
I understand that entirely, but you don't ask for that kind of contract when your team is already in cap crunch trying to put a team together. How is that improving your team when you're saying, I want $12 million, like 14% of the cap, and then put the team around me? No, that's counterproductive. Like, you could be elite and then you could be this, and this is not going to get it done for you.
I don't know what the number is, but like there's a limit to what percentage a player can make. Like, he can't make, I want to say it's like 20. I think it's really high. I don't think one player can make more than 20% of the salary cap. So it's kind of creative how he's going in that way and just saying, like, I want 14% of that. Whatever that is, that's what I want. Okay. And if it's in that $12 million range, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it. Like, and the whole Trouba thing just seems to be going, like, who knows where that's going. It's very interesting how they do want to get, seems like they want to get rid of him. But now you're hearing stories of, like, it's difficult to move him because his wife is doing a residency at a hospital in the area, which I completely respect that. So that's throwing a wrench into everything. Very interesting what's going on with the Rangers. They're gonna have a good team. They're gonna have a good team, but keep in mind the Avalanche have their 2nd round pick next year. So, and I root for the Rangers. That's my East Coast team. But if it benefits the Avs to get a better 1st round pick, implode. Well, go ahead and implode just for next year. So the Avs can have a good 2nd round pick.
All Trouba has to do is play a cleaner game, and his wife wouldn't have to have that residency at the hospital. He's putting half the people in there.
It's kind of true. I don't think Dallas had a good free agency so far.
They got Matt Duchene. What else do they want?
That's good, but they lose Tanev, and what they've done to replace him is not. It's kind of like the Denver Broncos running back by committee back in the day. It's just like we're just gonna get bodies, and to an extent, it's kind of what the Avs have done in terms, but not for defense, but more for their forwards. But I think the Duchene signing was fine. I think that's a good deal, low number. But everything else, nothing really is hitting me as like, ooh, man, like Dallas is improving.
Same with Boston.
See that. Boston's another team. I don't like those. Again, those are going to be like the regrettable deals. So it's just fascinating to me. And while we talk about this stuff, and while you see this stuff, it kind of makes me respect the Avalanche a little bit more. And if there's people out there saying, like, oh, that's just you being a homer, like, no, I'm glad the Avalanche did not a single deal where you're going to have buyer's remorse and have that regrettable contract, because they didn't do it. You have 1 or 2 year deals, and you can live with those for 1 or 2 years.
I'm going to hold off on that until they make that final move to make it balance that cap. That final cap relief move, because then this could be one of those things. They had to put this team together to lose insert player name here.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how it plays out. But as of right now, if we were playing with a perfect, like if they had literally $0, I would say this is an okay offseason, and I can live with it. But I'm curious to see what's that move that's going to make everything all right. Is that going to outweigh what they just did?
We shall see. And what we did see is the Avalanche schedule. It was released, and we'll take a peek at it. Why don't we do that next? All right. So the schedule for the next season is out, and I just wish this was, a bigger deal was made over this. Kind of annoys me. You
They
get NFL that, and I get it. NFL's, the granddaddy of everything. But ESPN has hour-long specials because the NFL schedule has come out. But for hockey, it's just like, oh, we'll put that on the Ocho.
They're trying.
Yeah. So let's throw it up here. I think there we go. Thank God the team logos are on there because that's a little bit small. But blue is away. Just so everybody knows, blue is away. If you're watching on YouTube, obviously, and the red is home. What do you think? You're opening up against Vegas, which we knew that. Your home opener is against Columbus 2 days later. So, like we said, it's nice. It's not Chicago, but it is Jack Johnson. I just found out before we started recording that Jack Johnson went back to Columbus. Didn't know that. So he's coming back and playing the home opener again, not with Chicago this time, but with Columbus. Sure.
Why not? This is now my favorite thing to witness every year.
What do you think? I mean, it's your typical schedule. I think there's 12 back-to-backs, which is about where you are. You usually have like 11 or 12 during the course of a season. I thought last year, I just thought the way that the Avs schedule lined up was terrible.
Yeah.
I just thought it was bad scheduling. And I know April's not on here. I'll scroll down for April in a minute, but this I will maybe if I dive into it a little bit more. The one thing that did stand out to me, Kyle, is if you look at January, every Saturday in January you have a game, and we know how the Avalanche played on Saturdays last year. I know it was more Saturday afternoons was kind of like they just could not get out of their own way for whatever reason, and now every Saturday in January you're playing a game, 2 on the road, 2 at home. Oh, hang on, your mic's gone a little crazy. Get that back.
And then to make that right, we're only going to play one Saturday game in February.
February is weird because obviously you have the Four Nations tournament, so you have basically 2 weeks off. You have a full 2 weeks off, so it's just kind of a big blank spot in February. So that is.
And you got like one in October.
What's that?
One Saturday game in October?
One Saturday game in October. In November, you have 4 out of 5. I mean, I get you play a lot of games on Saturday, but let me go down to April.
Yeah, Saturday night's all right for fighting.
Yeah, and you look at April, I always do. I always look at who the first game is and who the last game is. So they're ending against Anaheim, but they are ending on a back-to-back. I cannot for the life of me figure out why the NHL thinks that it's okay for a team, we would think that's any team, but especially a team that's probably heading into the playoffs. It's okay for them to end on a back-to-back. Well, that's one that should just not happen, if you ask me. And it's an away back-to-back, no less, in California. You're playing the Kings and then you're playing the Ducks. That drives me crazy.
You're ending the season on the 2 newest logos in the league. And honestly, by February or March, these teams will be eliminated. So what's the point?
You think the Kings will be eliminated?
What have they done?
I don't know. That's a story for another time, but they could be that team that's hovering. I don't think they're just far and away locking up a playoff spot, but they could be there.
With the rest of the teams in the West that have improved, I don't see Los Angeles as scary as I did last year.
It's tough. I'm looking to see I also like to see like the first time they are playing someone in their division. So let's see, with Utah there, and you pointed it out that Utah just looks terrible.
God, honestly. It's so bad. It's like a censor sticker.
So you have Utah there, October 24th. That's the first time you're playing them. And the last time you're playing them is in December. Can that be right? Yeah. Seeing stuff like that, I don't like. I like you see playing those teams over the course of a full season, but by December you're done playing Utah. Chicago, you're playing. That's the 28th of October, and let's see, yeah, and then you play them all through April. So that's more of like what I like to see. You're playing them in October, you're playing them in January, playing them in March, you're playing them in April.
And for everyone still on a revenge tour, I will just go ahead and let you know right now, November 29th is our first meeting against the Dallas Stars.
That's the first one. Okay. All right. So that's in November. You're
That's
playing
your PSA.
Yeah. November 2nd is your first game against the Preds. November 7th is your first game against Winnipeg. What else we got here? There you mentioned the Dallas one. And is that everybody? I'm missing it. Oh, Minnesota. Minnesota is not till January 9th.
Wow, not even the preseason.
That's crazy.
You got Dallas, Vegas, Utah, so you don't get to see Minnesota till January.
Till January. Wow.
What did we do to Minnesota to make them this mad?
And that's quick. You play them twice in January. You play them at the very end of February and then middle of March. So really within like a 2-month period, you're done with them. So
that's fine with me. Less Minnesota makes me a happy person.
And what we do as the season goes on is like we dive into this a little bit more deeper at the beginning of every month. So right now it's kind of just like a broad view of it. You have some good homestands this year. I feel like last year you didn't have that, but I think you have a 5-game, maybe a couple 5-game homestands. Yeah, you have your road trips, you have your East Coast trips, you have your California coast, you have all, and you're going to. That's just how a schedule goes. But I just, in looking at it in total, I thought it was a little bit more fair in terms of being home more. I just felt like the Avalanche would be on the road. They come home for 1 game and then go back out for another 2 games. And I didn't like last year's schedule at all. But looking at this one, just first and kind of glancing over it, I don't hate it. I don't know if that'll change when we start doing it month by month. We'll see. But right now it's much better, I think, than last year's.
Yeah, I think I like this one probably the best in the last 4 or 5 years. But my only glaring complaint is November 29th, you're playing in Dallas. November 30th, you're going back home against Edmonton. So it's a little tricky. It's back to back.
They're terrible. So what are you going to do? All right. So that is going to wrap it up for today, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Anything happens with the Avs, we should be back tomorrow to discuss all that fun stuff. But maybe they're going to take a little bit of a break, or maybe some massive move is on the horizon. We just don't know. Until then, thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you guys later.